Yeah, I like back.
All right. Well, we're here with Wally and Nathan Thornberry again. I said that as if you don't have a last name, nor is it necessary for anyone to be introduced to Wally Conway of Homebro Inspections in Jacksonville, Florida. And we are talking today about something really important. And you know, it's a bad time to some extent for this, but if we don't learn from these events, then they are in vain. And we have people being searched for right now in the rubble of a building in Miami. Uh, it's unlikely there's another survivor in there. Always hope, but unlikely. And a lot of people died. So this is big news. Of course, all of these were condos. They were owned units. They were purchased. Somebody went to their local real estate agent. They went and saw the property. They got a home inspection even. Many of them probably got home inspections. I would say probably most of them in the building. And yet here we are today with a tragedy, which may very well just be, just a fluke thing that we overreact to, like, and 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 what we do from here. So let's talk about this a little bit, Wally. Um, when you get a home inspection, well, what are you inspecting for? You're not inspecting the building at all, are you?
In my opinion, that answer is yes. And Nathan, just for a little context, I live in a waterfront condo in Florida that was built in 1970. And that the Monday after the collapse, our board voted a $1.1 million assessment. So I've had the joy of experiencing condo boards, both as a board member, residentially and commercially, and as a resident. And it's interesting when you wear multiple hats, the kinds of decisions you make.
And just for context, there, $1.1 million out of, I don't care if there's 50 or 200 unit owners. $1.1 million is a chunk of change.
It
Um,
is.
is it more than 200 unit owners, by the way?
It is less.
Less.
138 units. It comes out about $9,000 a piece.
All right, it's still a lot of money. I mean, it's
Not huge. I'm just sharing with you that I live these things on a daily basis.
and your condo is how many stories tall?
4.
Four. Okay, so we're not talking about a 10 or 15 or 20 story, massive thing where engineers need to come in to check it out every year or do a 40-year certification or any of these things that we're now all learning about today. So if I was just buying a regular condo, but because most people don't buy in high rises, most people buy single family homes or multifamily units that are 4 stories or below, that are 4 units per building or 50 units per building. That most buildings are not 300 and 500 units. So when you inspect that condo, do you inspect the roof at your inspection company?
Our position is yes. Our position is to look at that building holistically. Certainly, the primary concentration is within the confines of the unit in question, but they all play together holistically. More often than not, a piece of the HVAC equipment is up on the roof. Well, we need to go see that. While we're there, we're looking at the roof. We're looking at the balconies and the stairways and the exterior, all the other things that are going to impact that unit in question from the paint in, both physically and also financially.
Well, I'm glad you do that. I think it's only fair to our viewers to let them know that the standard in our industry is that you don't do that. The standard in the industry is that you have no obligation to do that. And most home inspectors say, well, I have no idea what the homeowners association documents say, so why am I looking at the roof? What that's probably something that's an association problem, which
I'm going to agree with you there, Nathan. We don't have necessarily a responsibility to review the HOA documents and do county record searches and all these other things. We don't have that obligation. But I feel more of a moral obligation to be sure the customer is educated, the agent is educated to know that there is information readily available to you that will impact, at a minimum, your financial wellness moving forward, and potentially, as we've seen in the last few weeks, your physical wellness.
So let's assume, just for argument's sake, that a buyer is lucky enough to have found Home Pro Inspections in Jacksonville, Florida, and they were referred to you. They don't even know. They never even talked to another 80 dudes that would not even check out the roof at all. Maybe go up there to check out an air conditioning system. If it was a high rise, let's go through the list of things that affected, in this high rise's case in Miami, these people's lives so horribly. So you go up on the roof, you check that out, you walk around the property, you get an overall view. You're taking a high moral standard for what what you do for your clients and what you deliver. There were columns in this property that were thinner than other columns. Those seem to be the failure point. I'm not a structural engineer, and certainly even if I was, I wouldn't have any particular knowledge on this building. But if they were potentially undersized, is that something that an inspector would see? I mean, probably.
In our case, absolutely not. There's no review in that depth of the drawings and whatnot. However, let's just make the hypothetical that we're looking at a high rise and we're parked in the high rise garage, or we're accessing the high rise garage to get to the elevator to go there. And you look up and you see spalling, or you see dripping, whatever you see that doesn't look the way you know that it should reasonably look, you make that customer aware. You'll want to query the management company. You'll want to query the association. What is the situation? What's being done about it? Is there a future assessment? It's in my mind, it's putting the customer in control of the right questions. I make no pretense that we have all of the answers, but what we do want to do is give them sufficient number of answers and the right questions and where to ask them, both, as I say, for financial risk moving forward of any large assessment, and then performance risk, whether that means performance because something doesn't work, or performance because it falls down around you in the middle of the night.
Well, let's go rapid fire and have these, all these items that seem to be in question or seem to be at fault in the case of this Miami building collapse. Because, I think it makes sense to look at them in their entirety and go, all right, what could you do as a buyer if a home inspector can't absolutely say these things are good? And it makes sense. There's no reasonable way that you could. But we've verified now that columns were smaller and potentially not engineered to the right size. Okay, maybe that's kind of hypothesizing there. Number two, there was a pool deck that was above this garage with a drainage issue or a lack of a drainage issue. And there's so many beachfront condos that are now built with this style where you have that parking garage right underneath the pool. I almost bought one recently myself.
It's a good use of space.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's nice and cool down there, perfect. And now your pool deck has a great view, and then there's the maintenance and inspections that, may have caught some stuff, but wasn't necessarily followed through on. Maybe it didn't catch all of it. Who knows? Then you have HOA members. And this is one that, I think there were probably people that moved into this building that had no idea that there was infighting amongst board members saying, hey, we have problems here. We need to get this fully analyzed. We need engineers in here. We need to spend the money. They were ignored. You had presidents and board members resigning as late as 2018.
Yeah.
And then you have, probably, and I think to some extent it's been shown, not enough money to pay for this stuff if they had decided to do it. So you had not enough money in the coffers, maybe an HOA due that were a little bit low. None of that's part of the home inspection. So let's talk about reasonable ways, practical ways, to 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 verify that these are not going to be things that cost you money as a buyer of a condo or an office condo for that matter.
Well, a couple of thoughts there, Nathan. It is the majority of people who buy into a condo, doesn't matter whether it's high rise or horizontal or residential or commercial, have zero interest in participating on an HOA. They just don't want to be involved. So it's a very small segment of people who are involved to begin with. That said, in the acquisition portion, you've got to know what you're buying into, because when you buy that condo, you're buying into the relationship and the performance of that HOA board and each of its members. That's critically important. And it goes back to, when you asked me earlier, do we inspect all of these things? It doesn't rise to the level of saying we've inspected it. Certainly haven't looked at any engineering drawings or whatnot, but getting the right questions. You need to understand and spend some time in conversation with a member of the board and or management company. How are they addressing these issues? Are these things budgeted for? And usually when you ask those probing questions, one or more of the people that you ask the question of is more than happy to tell you about any infighting or any proposed assessment, or, oh, these crazy people over here never want to spend any money. These crazy people over here, they want to spend a lot of money. It's getting a feel for what you're buying into. It's like getting married. You're stuck with all the in-laws. Same thing.
Well, I want to start with a first step that I would recommend to anybody buying in anything from, I don't care if it's a fourplex, a 2-story townhome fourplex in a neighborhood with 100 units, a 4-story building like yours, or a high rise.
Anytime there's shared ownership.
The very, very first thing that you do is you find a real estate agent, not a .com, a real estate agent who is very familiar, like lives there or lives nearby or farms it or has owned maybe one, maybe multiple units in the buildings in question, or they've had a lot of clients in there and they've already had the problems. They've already ran into the issues. They know who to talk to on the board. I think that's number one.
Regrettably, by the time the home inspector is involved, those decisions have already been made. The customer's even either chosen a savvy agent who is familiar with that building or the issues overall, or they've got their best friend from high school or college or church who really loves them but can't represent them worth a darn.
Right. And they're going to know all the processes. They're going to know where things are at. And they're going to know without looking it up, without pouring through documents. Oh yeah, we had an assessment for $7,000 3 years ago because the sand on the beach goes away because of the way the currents are, or whatever. And does it sound like we've been assessed those sorts of things before?
It does.
Yeah. But anyway, that's first step. I think the second step is to do exactly as you suggested, which is to talk to those board members, because you're right, most people don't participate in that. So the ones that are there's only a few. They have to deal with everything, and they're the kind of people that like to talk.
That's why they're on the association board. Also, the vast majority of condo associations at their websites have all the minutes and the history and at least the sanitized version of the quibbling. You can get a real feel for the tenor of what's going on in that organization on the online documents. And I like to look at the documents before I'm engaged in conversation. It makes my questions a lot better. It also gives me a quick screen. If a person's giving me information that conflicts with the minutes or conflicts with the record, I can kind of weigh the input that I'm getting.
I agree. And I think there's a reason why we're seeing more and more of that, where all of their documentation is online. Like you can get to it whether you are an owner or not, almost.
Yep.
And I think the big reason for that is that you have these association management companies. They are scared shitless, which is not going to be helped this month, of potential liabilities from diligently managing.
Bring an interesting point though, Nathan. Generally speaking, the management company serves at the mercy of the board. The management company executes in accordance with the board's directions. So the decision to have an assessment, that doesn't live with the management company. Very few decisions live with the management company. They are there to execute decisions made by the HOA or condo association.
I think there's truth in that, but at the same time, the association management companies, they're pretty good at telling their boards that they work with that, hey, you can do what you want. I mean, you can decide to light the place on fire if you wanted to, but we have an obligation to say this to all of the residents. We have an obligation, like you're going to go home and be hated. So just make a great decision here. So I think, talking to those board members, that makes sense. Talking to a couple of neighbors, that might make some sense. Go hang around. Before I bought a condo, I say recently, 4 years ago, I was in the elevator one day and just doing some planning. It was a remodel job. And as it turns out, there was a party on, second floor, just outdoor barbecue. I stopped by to see if they let a future resident hang out, and they did. And man, that was insightful. And I heard all about every little repair that had been done to that building.
Just grabbing a towel and saunter down to the pool, especially for Floridians, and you can hear everything.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring up one other thing that I think would be prudent for anybody, because you can ask the seller, as is almost always the case in the real estate transaction, show me all the HOA documents, show me the minutes, so give me a link to the HOA association management site so I can grab all of this stuff, and they'll show you all of that. But you really have to go through a lot of documents to find a problem. And it's a lot easier than that. These associations don't move. These condos don't move. They're in the same county from the time they're built to the time they, well, hopefully don't go away so abruptly, but to the time they're redeveloped. They're in the same county. Yes. And it is just enormously easy to walk into your county courthouse or go online, either way, and find everything associated with the names of the current president, the last president, the president before that, the association management company, and anything to do with the address that you're buying at. Like, it was super easy. And by the way, there was at least one homeowner in that building that had structural problems that were obvious to her, supposedly filed in a court in Miami with evidence of a structural issue, caused $15,000 worth of water damage from this structural issue. $15,000 worth of structural damage is not a small amount.
In a singular unit, that was. That's what's interesting.
Yes.
I got to interrupt you on this one because this drives me crazy. So you're in a multifamily condo type situation, and Sally Sue has a big crack, above her window. It's a $15,000 crack, and they're looking for the board/management company to spend the money to fix this thing. And often the rest of the people whose unit doesn't have the big crack are like, hey, well, I don't care about that. But this structurally, performance-wise, functionally, this whole thing operates together. So I'm sure that some of these units that fell had no cracks, and they would have felt like they got ripped off, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know how many, I don't talk to a lot of real estate agents about the pre to home inspection process. I hope a lot of real estate agents in coastal areas are pulling some of these legal documents, or at least advising their clients that they can do it, because it could avoid a lot of heartache for some people. And there's just nothing that they can do. Like from an inspection side, I think people have this idea that we're going to go in there like Superman and find every problem, but we're not digging up a foundation that's, you know,
No,
60 to 100 feet in the
design
ground.
stuff is certainly beyond the scope. But in every condo building, particularly if there's also some amount of rental going on where you have owner occupied and some rental, but between the rental management companies, the real estate agents, there's probably 3 people that have been in, and I'm talking from a real estate perspective, real estate agent. They know every unit. They can tell you what color carpet's in it. They can tell you all sorts of things. And when you look at some of these bigger buildings that might have 200, 300, 400 units, there's agents, their entire practice is 1 or 3 buildings. They just own everything that's listed and sold in those things. And there's such a wealth of knowledge. You want to draw on that expertise. And for agents who are new to a building, they can go to those same agents and say, hey, help a colleague out here, share with me, what needs to be known.
It's interesting. I don't think that people are going to get the kind of advice that you and I think they should get when they go to a .com, whether it's a Zillow or something like it, a Trulia, et cetera. I don't even know if Trulia still exists anymore, but what is it?
Trulia is owned by Zillow.
All right. Well, see, there you go. So, how do you know that you're going to get to the right agent that way? I don't think that you can know that. I think it would be much better to find a referral, particularly from someone in the area. Now let's go back to one last thing though, because I think this is something that people should be thinking about when they're looking at condos. I looked at one in Fort Lauderdale, and I've been looking for a while in Fort Lauderdale. I'd gone to Pompano, and it may work out for me, but my second home is really Fort Lauderdale. And I want to go down there and see the beach because I'm from Indiana, and Indiana sucks. So I have to go down there and see some water every once in a while and get my head on straight. And I find this, it really is great here in Indiana, but there's no beach. There's definitely no beach. And I find this Back Bay unit, and I'm like, okay, I can deal with Back Bay. Does it have a wonderful view of the ocean? Sure enough, it does. It's got 2,000 square foot patio. It's brilliant.
Hey, you're going to have a boat slip.
Yeah. I could add that. There's a way to add that too. And so here it is, everything all in one place. And I see the HOA dues, and it's $5,000 a month. And I go, whoa, like that's some sticker shock.
Yeah.
To me as a Hoosier, because for 3 times the space here in a high rise, we're 1/5 the association dues. And it's not just insurance. It's not just that hurricanes come and wipe the thing out every few years. It's more than that.
Both. That's what makes the premium.
Oh man, it is a premium for apparently no reason. But I think there's also, on the flip side, you don't want too low of an HOA dues. And I think there's something coming in the next 5 to 10 years that we started doing to ourselves. And I didn't realize this until my son went to go and buy one of these condos. And he's buying a $300,000 condo, let's call it. And the association due is $124 a month. And I go,
can't fund anything on $124 a month.
Well, and not only that, but it's a connected house. So there's a roof over 3 other units, 2-car garages, nice townhome. I mean, when you looked at these in other states, you'd think they were $500,000 plus properties. And the neighborhood has a brand new pool house. So I'm going, how is it possible that you're at 124? I mean, I was more than that in my first place in 1999. So There is no way that this is right. And
the answer is they're not building reserves for capital expenditures as they occur.
That's part of it. Let me tell you something even worse. This is a new strategy from the big builders. They take 3 units, they put them together, and then they say, all right, we're going to have a sub part of our HOA, our guidelines. And it says that whenever you 3 need a roof, you three get to split that. Whenever you three have a problem with the outside of your place, you get to split that. So there is now, very deceptively, I think most home inspectors 10 years from now would walk into that property with a client and go, oh yeah, you're in a HOA. They probably take care of everything. And it's just totally false. I mean, it's actually the same answer.
That's why I'm an advocate of presenting the right questions rather than the right answers. You need to determine what the ownership position is. You need to determine the expenditures, what's budgeted, capital reserves, not make the presumption it's done.
I think there's a lot of properties being sold for $300,000 right now that because the interest rates put you at $1,200 a month mortgage rates, and then $124 a month HOA due, that we're going to see a lot of people that cannot afford the bill when those come around. So keep an eye out for deferred maintenance as well, and maybe in the future we change up those inspection standards a little bit to just go, all right, now we know that this is an issue. Let's go ahead and add some more of the common areas to our standards.
Yeah, Nathan, you hear a lot on the news about this 40-year certification of the condos. That is unique to Miami-Dade and Broward County, that 3-county area. It doesn't exist elsewhere in Florida or maybe elsewhere in the nation. But what does and or should exist in virtually every place around the country is that reserve study. What is the budgeting over time? The roof is presently 10 years old. When do we anticipate to replace it? Okay, it's going to be replaced at year number 25. It's going to cost $300,000. Do we see the reserves building for that $300,000? What about the parking lot? What about all these other things? All of this stuff is readily available either online or directly from the association/management company, where you can look and say, what are these projections? And when you have a conversation and everyone looks at you like you're from Mars, that's telling you that the alleged adults who are running that association and management company have no clue how to protect your financial interests for sure, and potentially the performance or safety issues.
Now I see you're there at your new world headquarters under construction. I hope you engineered it perfectly. From a perspective of monument commercial inspections, do you guys offer a deeper look at these things? I mean, if I'm buying a condoed commercial space, which I own a couple,
right, as do I,
does Monument offer the service of looking at the whole property and advising on whether it has the right reserves, et cetera?
That's a yes. We do reserve studies and similar analysis that we've done for associations. Specific to condos, we've even been hired to resolve disputes between board members and associations, where we came in as the objective third party and said, okay, this is everything we see. We pulled all the documents together, just like you would in a property condition assessment. We've got all the documents and then been paid to go before the community and present on PowerPoint findings and best recommendations. And that takes the heat off of any one individual member. I'll tell you, I was very proud of this. We actually did that more than once, but for churches, which is essentially a giant communal commercial building, where there was a dispute between deacons or elders. Do we tear the old church down or do we build a new? And they even with prayer, they couldn't solve it amongst themselves. So they came to us and we just gathered all the information. We had a Wednesday night church service up on the big screen and presented the findings and the history and the whatever. And they came to their own comfortable decision once an objective third party was able to remove the emotion of it all.
I think, they need someone else to say to their parishioners what's really going on, so that it doesn't look like it's their idea,
Yeah.
we want a bright, shiny church. Well, okay, well, we're okay with what we got.
I will tell you, consulting with churches is significantly more challenging than consulting with condo associations, homeowners associations, or individuals, because you've got two sides. They both prayed about it and believe they're right.
last thing, I think I can't be the first person to ever think of this. If I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm buying a $3 million high-rise condo, something on the riverfront there, something crazy, and I want a little bit more information about the building. I don't have the time to do it. I don't have the expertise. I don't want to have a learning curve on this stuff. Is there a certain level, how much do I need to be spending on a place before spending a little bit more on that monument commercial property assessment, or entry level property assessment becomes a better idea than having a residential inspection from Home Pro?
That's an interesting question. As you know, we have the three companies: the pest control company, the commercial company, the residential company. If it's an individual unit within it, we keep it all inside the residential company. And if the level of due diligence that feels appropriate to that individual, we'll bring the pieces in that we would normally have accessed from our commercial company. If it's a condo association related issue, whether it's an individual owner attempting to take an action against the association, or the association looking for guidance, we do that as exclusively commercial.
Well, then, just last thing, my opinion, we'll see if you agree with this. I think that there will be a massive overreaction to this.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it's healthy. I think it's obviously a horrible tragedy that this building went down. And it certainly comes with a lot of lessons. There should be some reasonable and practical things, measures taken, and certainly a little bit more awareness. But man, I look at Florida and I look at the property values and where they are already, and where the expenses are already, and where the HOA dues are already. And I go, how much more can they stuff into that, for prevention, for, an overreaction, without taking away from property values, without severely taking away from the enjoyment of these properties. And for what? Any death is too many, but
Yeah, likely will lots and lots of smart people will take a hard look at it from different perspectives and turn it into sausage and make a group of bad decisions. I'll tell you the one I'm concerned about, and I know you're aware of the challenges for homeowners insurance in Florida. The legislature just changed a bunch of rules as of the 1st of July that the Florida Supreme Court just overturned in the last several days. But when we start looking at insurability of individual condo units and insurability of the whole units for associations and whatnot, I think that's where we're going to see a real challenges in insurability.
well, and again, another thing where they go, here's some more expenses. We're gonna throw your valet. They just went up in expense. We just bought some new equipment for the exercise room, and the seawall is about to fall over. So here's your $5,000 a month, and we're gonna go.
No, well, Nathan, name me an area where you can get more and not pay more. It doesn't matter what it is: cars, boats, planes, condos, associations, steak dinner. You want more, you pay more. It's a challenge. The difficulty is, in an association, you have differing interests and different priorities. It's tough.
So the Thursday the state law did not permit an insured to recover extra contractual consequential damages. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll appreciate this as an insurer. I believe the number is 80% of all litigation expenses related to insurance on residents occurs in the state of Florida. And what that piece you were just reading out of the law was intended to put this treble damages off to the side, which made it so lucrative for law firms to take on frivolous claims.
Yeah. Well, and basically they're saying that they should be able to exclude consequential damages, and a Supreme Court is saying, no, you shouldn't be able to do that. To me, there's a more of a capitalism, of freedom of for
Oh,
businesses
joy to
here.
have a conversation with you, knowing you've got 9 screens in front of you, and each time I say anything, you're Googling to find out if it's correct. This is great fun.
Well, I already read it, but we're gonna have that conversation again at some point. I don't like the idea that the state of Florida forces an insurer to say, here's what you have to cover. Outside of like health insurance, which is a totally different thing. Like, health insurance companies that say we're not going to cover pregnancies. Okay, that's horrible. It's inhuman. But this is just capitalism, and people should be able to decide to have a cheaper policy. And if they have a trailer, which about 90% of Floridian residents have a trailer, they can put all their shit in there and they can drive it to Georgia whenever the next hurricane's coming. And that's personal responsibility. Just my take on it. We're gonna go and schedule the next one soon, Wally. Good to
All
see
right.
you.